ask one other second? You know, people ask a two-part question.
Yeah.
Also, could you give us more details with the concert for the dogs? Was there an owner next to each dog, or what was the layout?
Yeah, the layout, first of all, to go backwards, the layout was the opera house steps. Because they had overflowed their boundaries on the plaza, and they were up on the steps. No, they came with people. They didn't just drive and find out, oh, well, show, let's go. No, they all came with people, and the people were part of it too. I was just playing them down a little bit because I was more focused on the dogs. But there was, each one had, there was various combinations of things. And like I said, it was short, and it had a lot of rhythm in it in some parts, because when you're walking with a dog or a person, you've got to get in their rhythm, or else it's, if you're walking down the street and one is window shopping, the other is going, you gotta, to make it a nice walk, you've got to agree on a tempo. Dun, dun, or we're gonna have a stroll, otherwise the walk is torture, so. It was a little bit about that, about synchronizing your energy with, whether your dog or your partner. And McDonald's was satisfying because it was about giving people what they ordered. That was a unique experience for me. Didn't I order an opera? And this is like a pencil sketch. It's like, oh well. Anyway, one of the things I remember about that was a lot of the workers were Chinese Americans, because it was on the border of Chinatown in New York. So these people were like working at like a Chinese opera. It was like so smooth. It was like, yeah, oh, that move. So I was, my trainers were Peng and An, Chinese American women, and we were. They taught me everything about all the stuff, and so one day, we didn't have a lot of time to like chit chat, but one day they were saying like, where are you where are you from? And I was saying, oh no. It started out. People said, no, you're German. Am I right? And I said, well. I'm like a combination of things, I'm like some Swedish and Scottish, bit of Irish, but her eyes are like glazing over, that was too much information. And I said, basically I'm German. Same. German. So they all then call me the German, like, hey, I'm a German, come over here, I'm a German, get that mop, I was doing everything, the Happy Meals bags and toys and all this Snickers and the French fries.
Did you have meat there as well?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't have meat there. But I learned a certain kind of efficiency there. And thinking of myself as German was a big help. and in getting it all done. And anyway, also the other job that was that reminded me of that in many ways was the thing that was a little bit opposite. I'm thinking back to Interstellar now too. Was a job that I had for a couple of years, being artist in residence at NASA, and I was just thinking in terms of that movie of like where we're going to go. There's a room that has a 10,000 year timeline on it. Those of you who do projects, you can get out the whiteboard, you've got the timeline for the movie is going to be here to a year and a half point. There's 10,000 years, so it was, because we are, Mars is where we're going. So it's being terraformed at the moment, oxygen and chlorophyll and things are being brought there. And now that we know so much about taking care of planets, we're going to take care of Mars. It's worrying. Anyway, there are some more comments or questions. It doesn't have to be a question. It can just be a riff.
I'd like to ask about your experience.
I have a microphone here if you'd like to use it.
The album, your album, the ugly one with the jewels. I really love that album.
Oh, thanks a lot. She's asking about the ugly one with the jewels.
Your experience. I'm sure you had a real experience while you.
Yeah, when I took it to the record company, they said, we're not releasing this.
I'm glad they did.
Music. You know, they have the same thing as the art police. They're like, it has to be like music. That one, there was especially some of those stories, they were adventure stories really. And one was about being in Mexico, which I just was looking at again because next month I have to do a concert at a pyramid in the Yucatan with Jim Terrell, the lighting guy who's built a kind of pyramid. So they said, well, just get a few of those stories from Mayan times about, you know, cosmological story. Anyway, so books like Popol Vuh is full of the Mayan stories, but also in Ugly One with the Jewels, the title of that comes from some time I spent in Yucatan. One of my brothers was an anthropologist, and he was working on the Tzotzil dictionary. Tzotzil are the descendants of the Mayans. So he was also, his specialty was the relationship of stories to architecture. So he would like transcribe stories, and his stories were things like two brothers are sitting at a table and they're eating soup. And they look in the soup and there's a reflection of a rat gnawing away at the crossbeams. And they look up and there's a rat gnawing away at the crossbeams. It's the end of the story. Great story. It was, the word is going, why is this, you know? So he spent a lot of time building yurts, cupcake-shaped like structures that they live in. And in the middle of the yurt is, guess what, this big crossbeam, and at the end of the crossbeam there are holes for no structural reason. So Thor's saying, you know, what are the holes for? And they're like, wouldn't you like to know, white boy? You know, so they, you know, didn't tell him. He would just drill the holes every time. After maybe 3 years, he was there 10 years. After a few years, he realizes the holes are solstice holes. And the sun locks into the holes twice a year. And that they're just, these are the real descendants of these cosmological Mayans who are like, you know, buildings. What he discovered, which is even more so a kind of crazy thing, was the Mayan glyph is, the sentence structure, let's say, is a rectangle with two open corners, and through that is a bar. So each, and then the smaller characters that make up the sentence are different little glyphs. So, but the sentence structure is the ground plan then of the house. So everything is like this. Anyway, the Ugly One with the Jewels was just my nickname when I was there. They call me Lasha, which means Ugly One with the Jewels. And I was like, yeah, I mean, ugly, yes. I mean, I'm like towering over them. They're teensy, they're so lovely, like little, just tiny porcelain, tiny, delicate, bird-like people. And so we're very clumsy, you know, like, and, but jewels didn't get jewels. So finally, when I snapped in place and said I had contact lenses at the time, and I was taking them out and putting them on the like sleeping shelf at night because I'd lost my case, so I was like putting on a little leaf on the sleeping shelf. And one night I noticed everyone in the yurt was like staring at me, and I was like, I realized they'd never seen glasses, much less contact lenses, and that these were the jewels, these transparent, perfectly round jewels that I was hiding on the shelf, and then for safekeeping, putting in my eyes. May have been ugly, but I had the jewels. Anyway, these stories, and this is going to be a crazy concert because it's one of these like invited guests only kind of creepy jungle experiences, you know. And I'm going to play though with some local musicians, which this is one of the things that I love about playing with people outside of my world is I learned about a lot of things, very different things. I was doing a show about 2 hours north of Lisbon a few years ago at a castle. And I'll reconstruct where this is. I'm going to look at a map later. Anyway, I was touring with Chigilchin, which is a Tuvan group from Mongolia. And Mongolia is so far away. You know, you have to like fly for a long time, and then you have to get a 5-day train, and then you drive for 2 days, and then you ride for 5 days into near home. And these guys are playing these beautiful instruments, and you know, they, as I mentioned before, they were the throat singers, so they have these incredible harmonics, like, you know, and they control all of these notes that are like radios tuned to 7 stations, going and with the overtones. And anyway, and they had these beautiful homemade instruments, these little horse head banjos and little, you know, carved, one with erhu, and anyway. So after the show, they were packing up their instruments and going off into the dark, and I said, guys, where are you going to? And their Russian manager had forgotten to arrange transportation back to Lisbon. So what were they going to do? Being nomads, they were going to walk back to Lisbon. It was going to take like 8 hours. You know, this is not Americans. Americans would just go, where's the band? You know, what? You know, and so they just walked off into the. I was also one of those concerts where, you know, the notes also are. There's no wall for them to slam into, so the notes go on and on until they just dissolve into the black night. And so when